Moving to Deputy Sean Kenny. And I'd ask maybe members as they ask the questions that they wouldn't ask questions that have been asked already, so that we can get new information.
Thank you, Cahirlick, and I will not repeat the questions asked by yourself and by Deputy Dooley, except to reiterate the importance of the Heathrow slots and the whole question of connectivity and to tourism and to industry. But I'm a Dáil deputy for the constituency of Dublin North East, where many Aer Lingus employees and many Aer Lingus retirees and their families live in the community. Many of them have expressed concern to me about regarding their future in the context of a bid by IAG to take over Aer Lingus, and I want to ask a number of questions arising from that. Do you, Mr. Walsh, and IAG accept that Aer Lingus staff have made many concessions and efficiencies which vindicate the use of direct labour at Aer Lingus in the last number of years, and would you commit not to outsource further the functions there? Secondly, would you and IAG be prepared to enter into a legally binding collective agreement which would support the current flexible nature of existing agreements at Aer Lingus for their staff, which would give Aer Lingus workers certainty over their futures? Are you, Mr. Walsh, and IAG aware of the residual discontent among former Aer Lingus employees classed now as deferred members of the IAS pension? I think you said you were a deferred pensioner yourself, so you're probably in that category. But they have concerns following pension arrangements passed by the EGM of Aer Lingus before Christmas. And would IAG have any strategies for addressing those concerns? And Mr. Walsh, when you were CEO of Aer Lingus between 2001 and 2004, you discontinued all cargo services except those services to Frankfurt and to USA. I'm informed that those cargo services were not unprofitable at the time. These services were put back and built up again by your successors, and I would ask you, would you do the same again?
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard the statements made by representatives of the employees in Aer Lingus about the efficiencies that they have generated. My view has always been very clear. If what they say is true, there's absolutely no reason to be concerned. I recognise that changes have taken place in Aer Lingus. I'm fully aware of some of those, but not all of those. You know, we don't look to outsource business as a strategy. We look to only to outsource business as a solution when no other solution exists. My preferred solution has always been to operate as much of the services we can internally within the business, because that's the area where you can exercise most control. So if it can be done internally, that has always been my preferred choice. And you know, if you look back at my time in Aer Lingus, while outsourcing was often talked about, it was never actually done. You know, we didn't engage in outsourcing. What we did was we restructured the business to make it more efficient, to secure the jobs directly within Aer Lingus. And that, as I understand it, is what has continued to happen. And I listened to I think it was Owen Reedy from SIP2. I thought actually he was probably the most sensible of the people who appeared before the committee. No disrespect to the other people, but you know, he made very clear what had happened to make Aer Lingus more efficient. That's what I'm about. You know, the efficient operation of a business. If it can be done internally, I'm all for that. In relation to legally binding collective agreements, I spent a long time working in industrial relations in Aer Lingus. I'm very familiar with the collective agreements. I'm very familiar with the fact that they are not structured as legally binding documents, and they would have to, as I would see it, to be completely rewritten and restructured so that they could be understood legally. So they weren't ever drawn up with legal enforcement in mind. It was free collective bargaining where these agreements were open to negotiation and interpretation and resolution between the parties. I'm not clear in terms of the dispute resolution procedures that have been put in place in Aer Lingus. I understand that there was a move to do so in an effort to resolve any differences of agreement that would exist. I'm all for having systems where any dispute around interpretation can be resolved amicably within the business, and where it can't be done directly, that it be done through mediation or arbitration. And I think that system has generally worked well for Aer Lingus. And in relation to the pensioners, I am a deferred pensioner. My pension has been reduced by 20% in line with many others in Aer Lingus. What I can say is that we will honour the agreement that was reached by Aer Lingus with their shareholders at the EGM in December, but we would not be doing anything other than that. So the agreement that was reached in relation to the IASS in December at the Aer Lingus EGM would be honoured by IAG. And you're right, during my period in Aer Lingus we did stop cargo services on short haul. Principal reason for doing that is we were pushing to improve aircraft utilisation and to accelerate the turnaround of aircraft to get better use. It was deemed that the contribution that cargo made on short haul was insignificant relative to the benefit that could be achieved by being able to rotate the aircraft quicker. I'm pleased that it's been reintroduced because Aer Lingus, I don't think, has lost any efficiency as a result of that. And I would point out that we are one of the biggest cargo operators in the world. And I believe actually we can bring a lot of value to Aer Lingus in terms of cargo and a lot of value to the Irish economy. I listened to comments made by Enterprise Ireland and the IDA who highlighted cargo as being a critical issue. We are leaders in cargo. We're also global specialists in high-value cargo, particularly in the area of pharmaceuticals. And these are issues that we believe we can bring to Aer Lingus and assist Aer Lingus and develop that, particularly given the importance of the pharmaceutical industry in Ireland.
Okay, thanks. Deputy Kenny, do you want to?
Just one final question. On the question of binding collective agreements, the government is preparing legislation at the moment for having registered employment agreements, and I think that's expected to be passed before the summer. So would you be open to, bringing the existing agreements in Aer Lingus under that kind of a registered employment agreement, which would guarantee the future and the future of the Aer Lingus workers?
I have to be completely honest with you. I'm not familiar with the proposed legislation. What I would say is we will respect the terms and conditions of the employees in Aer Lingus. And the issue of the relationship or management of industrial relations issues would rest with the management of Aer Lingus. We do not have a group HR function at IAG. So all HR, industrial relations issues are managed within the operating companies. We at IAG do not participate in that. And that would continue to be the practice with Aer Lingus. So if Aer Lingus was part of IAG, the responsibility for managing the relationship with the trade unions and the workforce would continue to rest with the Aer Lingus management team and wouldn't be moved to IAG. That's the structure we have in place. We believe is the most efficient. It also respects the individual cultures and operations and history and legacy within the individual operating companies, and we would operate in that way with Aer Lingus. So that would be for the Aer Lingus management team to determine.
Thank you.